And thank you, everybody. We're glad that you could join us for this session. My name is Justin Harford, and I'm the National Clearinghouse. I'm the project coordinator of the National Clearinghouse on Disability and Exchange. For the sake of audio description, I'm also a suave debonair white guy with dark blonde hair wearing a sky blue dress shirt. And I'd tell you what else I'm wearing, but I don't think the sighted people can see that anyway. So I'm going to do, the goal of this session is that, we often think about study abroad as, studying, and even actually the very language around international education kind of emphasizes this notion of study. And I think for kind of the lay person who isn't acquainted with ideas like service learning, for example, you can kind of forget or be led into the impression that all we mean is taking classes abroad, which raises questions. Well, what if you're not in school anymore? What if you're not a student? Or, what if you don't need any more units? Or what if you don't have a whole semester or a year to spend, taking classes? So, or, what if you want to have other more, what if you want to build a resume? Employers don't always respond as much to the experience that we get writing papers and completing midterms in classes. They often prefer people who have quote unquote real world experience, where you're out there solving difficult problems, working with teams, and being accountable to your employer, to somebody who's paying you, as a contrast to somebody who you're paying to teach you. So experiential exchange is that opportunity. You can volunteer, you can intern, you can conduct scholarly research. There's a whole host of other opportunities that you can do while studying or completely on their own. And today we're going to be talking to a panel of 3 individuals with different disabilities who have, in different capacities, sought out these experiential opportunities. And as a part of the opening, I think what we'll do is just straight away go into having them introduce themselves as well. I'm going to ask first Doris to introduce yourself. And tell us your name, something people might not know about you, and a career goal.
Okay. I'm waiting for the interpreter to catch up. Okay, great. Hello, my name is Doris Alcántara. And something about myself, I'm deaf. And can you repeat what the last question that you wanted me to respond to was? The last introduction.
Something people might not know about you and a career goal.
Oh, all right. So as far as a career goal, I'm a special educator for school children, and my goal is to help them succeed, whether they have a disability or not, and specifically focusing with disabilities. And that's my goal, is to continue to do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Judy, why don't you give us introduction? We know your first name, something people might not know about you, and your career goal, well, or your post-career goal.
Right.
In your case.
Good morning, everyone. I am on the West Coast, and it's morning here still. I am a 60-year-old African-American woman with a lavender polo shirt that says Peace Corps on the label, and I wear glasses, and I respond to she, her pronouns, and so I am a teacher, retired after 29 years of teaching in New York City, where I'm from. Right now I'm in Oregon serving as a Peace Corps response volunteer. A career goal as a retiree is that I want to be of service in whatever way I can. and wish to do and wish to be. Because when you're retired, you get to do what you want to do when you want to do it. That's what I always tell everybody. So that's my big career goal, and that's what I am trying to do. And something that people may not know about me is that I have put in actually 5 applications for Peace Corps. And Mobility International USA helped me on my first one, but I did not make it in that time. I was rejected. And all the other ones I have made in, except for the last one I'm currently applying for. I am considered an invitee and hope to be an actual Peace Corps response volunteer by November.
Great. Thanks, Judy. I almost kind of think like maybe when you say retired, it could just be, you could just put it in air quotes. It seems like you're kind of continuing with your career through your service in the Peace Corps. Actually, that's interesting though too, what you're saying about how like, you know, not getting accepted the first time you applied. Sara, I think that your experience is similar with that, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to us, tell us a little bit about something somebody might not know about you and something you hope to accomplish in your career.
Hi, sorry, my mic didn't work. My name is Sara. I'm 20 years old. I'm Colombian, and I'm so glad to be here. And I am studying languages. Something curious about me is that I love languages. I love them so much, and I hope to learn a lot of languages. And yeah, I had the same experience. I applied to an exchange a couple times and I got accepted in the second one. So nice, you need to keep trying. And a career goal for me is just to kind of being able to advocate for exchange opportunities as a form of empowerment for people with disabilities here in Latin America, because there's not too much opportunities here actually. And especially for women and girls in other countries. So I really want to work on that field, even though I'm studying languages.
Thanks you, Sara.
Thank you.
So I'll direct this next question straight back at you. So, I mean, why don't you describe your disability and what it's met kind of on your volunteer and interning abroad experiences, and yeah, and I guess you can probably also tell us too, I guess, what was, just in a quick summary, what were the 2, I think actually you said those 2 programs, you did the Youth Ambassadors and the community college program. Well, so tell us about your disability then, what it's meant for you in those 2 experiences that you've had.
Okay, so I'm legally blind. So my experiences, I had experiences as a volunteer and also as an intern. The first one was as a volunteer. The first program I went into was the Youth Ambassadors program. It is for young people that want to like impact their communities between 15 and 17 years old. And I had experiences volunteering there, especially in food security. Like I was in Feed My Starving Children, packing food, and in St. Anthony's Foundation, that is kind of a community kitchen in San Francisco. And my experience as a visually impaired woman, I actually felt that disability can be so useful, like disability perspective in those experiences. The personal growth it represented for me is like undescribable. And also I met other people that wants to kind of make a difference and make an impact. So I feel it was so useful. And as for the second exchange, I got the opportunity to to intern in different kind of school and education related places, because I was studying special education and early childhood education. So I volunteered in places like Montessori schools and child laboratories with kids, and I loved that experience too, because I felt I can be useful and I can, help. So that's actually something I haven't thought about before, and I loved it.
That's great, Sara. And actually, I was just looking at your LinkedIn earlier. It looks like you even says you have an associate's degree from the community college where you went during that program. So, and so the interesting thing about that to me is you were earning academic credentials, and at the same time, even with that, you were also seeking opportunities on the side to do experiential, to volunteer and do community stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, and let's move on to Judy. Tell us, could you describe your disabilities and what it's meant for you when you've been volunteering with the Peace Corps response?
So I have chronic spinal stenosis, which is basically like arthritis of the spine, lower back, and it doesn't go away. And I have herniated disc disease, which means that my discs are flat like pancakes in between the vertebrae. And in Belize, Peace Corps told me that my asthma is also considered a disability, which Peace Corps has to make accommodations for. They also told me that I have, because my ophthalmologist said that I had a thickened optic nerve in one of my eyes, that was another reason for my denial in the first application. So yeah, that was those were all of the problems that I encountered. For me, the spinal stenosis was the main one that they were concerned about. And that was because in developing countries, they said roads and transportation were an obstacle because of poor road condition, and I might hurt my back even more and exacerbate my problems. And for that reason, they wouldn't allow me to spend 27 and a half months in a country, in the country I was applying for at that time, which was Jamaica. Even in Belize, they considered it difficult because of road conditions. I disagreed with them at first, but when I got to Belize, I kind of understood that 2-year volunteers are generally put in places that are rural, which they didn't explain to me at the time. And rural areas do have very poor roads. People generally have to carry, buckets of water from the river far distances, or use squat toilets, or you have to do certain things. So they were actually they were probably right. That would have been very, very difficult for me to have been placed in a 2-year position in a rural village. But in Peace Corps response, which I didn't know about, you're generally working in a city. You're generally living in a place that's a little bit that has fewer issues with transportation, things like that. So, and you don't have to go and do your laundry in the river. You might have a washing machine and a dryer and that kind of thing. So, life is more equivalent to Western world facilities. So that's how it impacted my Peace Corps. And every time I apply, it continues to impact getting through, because their medical clearance process is really intense, especially for someone who's 60 years old, like me, with all of several medical conditions.
I think an interesting part of your story too, that I know, like you kind of you took a lot of initiative to on your own, as far as like I think like following, your doctor had some suggestions for you to kind of follow to kind of strengthen your back a little bit more? Like, were there any, could you talk about maybe generally like what,
Well,
any sort of
yeah,
preparations that you did to?
I did. I had been told that if I lost weight, if I did exercises, physical therapy exercises, back strengthening exercises, I would feel considerably better. So I did. Before I left, I went, I lost a good chunk of weight, about 40 pounds, and I exercised every day, and I still do. And it did make a world of difference. It helped a lot. I also think that being in Belize for the time that I was in a very warm climate helped, which nobody told me about either. But it really, I never had back problems while I was serving. I never felt better than I felt when I was serving in Belize. And I think it was due to the warm weather.
Oh, that's a good point. Wow. Yeah, I liked your points too about like, you know, I mean, it's sort of Jamaica, maybe two-year assignment in a rural part of the country wasn't really going to work as well versus a 9-month assignment in Peace Corps response in a more metropolitan area. You were in the capital Belmopan of Belize. And yeah, I think that when people apply for Peace Corps, it's a very unique program, just speaking from my experience as an advisor, in the sense that there are many really rural assignments. And one of the great things about Peace Corps now is you have a lot more choice about where they put you, and because you actually apply directly to a country. And I think for people who are looking kind of for an appropriate Peace Corps assignment, what I try to tell them now is just there's a lot of forums out there, a lot of online discussions, and I would just be trying, if I was going to do it myself, or if I was going to tell somebody what they ought to do, like you should, before you submit an application anywhere, you should be kind of trying to glean information about what conditions are like in different countries. I am aware, I have actually heard of too, I can add on to piggyback on what you were saying. I've met people who have done the 2-year flagship program and who also were able to get assignments in more metropolitan areas close to medical support and things like that. A person who, for example, served in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, for 2 years. So, but that's not always the case. Like you said, most assignments are in the rural areas where, like you said, you're washing your clothes in the river and there's bumpy roads and so forth. So, but trying to kind of direct for people applying to those programs, I recommend setting yourself up for success at the beginning by applying for something that is going to be kind of more in a supported area, because Peace Corps definitely is going to be really concerned about that when they're evaluating your ability to serve, is sort of how well they're going to be able to support you.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. If you can find out as much about the country as possible, if you can apply directly to a country, Peace Corps doesn't. You can apply to a region, a country, or just say, put me anywhere. If you apply to a country, you can read their website and find out more about the country and what disabilities they accommodate, or they have trouble accommodating. Their website is very clear about that.
I appreciate that's great. That's great. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can also look at the country page. That's great. Let's go on to Doris. So tell us, Doris, well, you're deaf. So what has being deaf meant for you when you volunteered or interned abroad? And actually go ahead and tell us too about what you did actually while you were a student at Gallaudet University.
Yes, I graduated from Gallaudet University and a 2-year program, and I did a major in international studies and second year government program, and I minored in Spanish. Excuse me, I'm going to make sure the interpreter is correct. It's a second major in international studies and government. Thank you. And then I had a minor in Spanish. So I went on a trip to the Dominican Republic. And then my research was about this current status of deaf education in the Dominican Republic. So for me, that trip being deaf was an interesting experience because really there were barriers that I didn't expect. And also the perception of people who are deaf and how people viewed me really limited me and my ability to engage. So that was interesting. Yep.
Like, I think one of the things you shared with me was that in the Dominican Republic with the United States, there's the free video relay service. So if you need to make a phone call to a local business to ask, for example, if they have something you want to buy, you can use the free video relay. And in the Dominican Republic, there wasn't that sort of thing.
Right, right.
You were.
So that was a challenge. It was frustrating. Oh, were you going to say something?
You were, but then your project was with a deaf organization called ANSORDO, ANSORDO for the interpreter, and but that was also kind of a different experience too. With a lot of your work was with that. So, were there any challenges there, or was it pretty supported because you were in a deaf community and usually using sign language with others? And
so yes, regarding the VRS and calling people was very difficult. Trying to communicate with hearing people was a challenge because I'm used to that video relay service here in the United States. But I am very independent, and the VP does give me opportunities to be independent. So I'm used to, when I went to Dominican Republic, I tried to contact people in other ways. And working with ANSORDO was nice because they have a WhatsApp that they use, and they can use video and communicate with each other all the time. So among the deaf community, it was very welcoming, and I didn't feel at all like I was going to be alone in the Dominican Republic there because of that. So that was nice. And it really helped me to engage with a part of the world and feel that there's a deaf community there and be supported even when I wasn't at home. So.
And Doris, you basically created this experience on your own. It was not a pre-existing program that existed through Gallaudet. It was something that you found ANSORDO and essentially created this assignment. How did you decide that this was what you wanted? How did you settle on this opportunity?
Well, really, one day I went to the Dominican Republic on vacation, and I do have family from there. So I decided I was, as I was watching TV, I was noticing that there weren't really captioning available. And so as deaf people here in the United States, we're used to reading captioning, and it's really a tool for learning, So in the Dominican Republic, I was really curious how people learned there. If they don't have captioning, what other resources do they have? So I was really curious about how I would be able to access that, or what they did. So I wanted to do more research in that regard. So I contacted a lot of people in the deaf community to see who may have contact information for people down there. And finally, I was connected to someone, and I added another major, international studies, and then specifically specialized in the Dominican Republic. And then I was able to set up that program through Gallaudet to be able to go down there. So now Ansordo has been so very welcoming. They were, when I contacted them, they were very grateful to have me engage with them and be glad to share ideas. And really, I'd say that if you want opportunities, just ask. You never know. You never know if you don't ask that there may be an opportunity available, and it can be as simple as that. So there's a lot of work in contacting people on your own, but if you want something, I think you should just pursue it. Just go for it.
Thanks, Doris. I think it's great that there's a lot of independent research type opportunities out there. I know when I studied abroad in Santiago, Chile, several years ago, there was a program where you could get a professor to mentor you, kind of like what you did, Doris, and you could carry out your own research project. And that was really great. It added a whole new dimension to my program. So when you all study abroad, if you're thinking about independent scholarship opportunities, Sara, you found your program actually really early, and it started actually, I think you were telling me before, when you kind of started learning English. And could you kind of go into, how did you discover the Youth Ambassadors program in the beginning, and how did you decide that that was kind of the opportunity that you wanted to do? What were you looking for through that program?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, I love languages, so I wanted to study English. And I did it in one school from my country, and they had an office for Education USA. They help students in those bilingual schools in different countries to find opportunities, especially international opportunities to travel and volunteer. And I went to that office. I think the person that helps there just get tired of seeing me all the time going and looking and asking her to read the flyers for me because they were not accessible. So I was like, oh, we need to make this in Braille and stuff. So I started kind of making friends with all people working with international students to see if there was any opportunity available. But I was 14 at that time, and they were like, you're so young yet. But after some time going and trying to learn, looking for international opportunities, I discovered the Youth Ambassadors program. I was volunteering here in my country with a church, like a youth group of the church, and I wanted to see if there was more opportunities for volunteering, but abroad. And the Youth Ambassadors program got some requirements I kind of fulfilled with the volunteering experience, a bit of English, like for conversations, English, and being at school. I was 16 when I applied the first time, and I was rejected, but next year I applied again and I passed. So that was how it worked.
That's great. Yeah, and the so for everybody who doesn't know, Education USA is a network of over 400 advising centers worldwide. The interesting thing that I've learned about Education USA is that they sometimes, there's always an office that says Education USA on the outside, and you can look it up in the directory. You found it at the Colombo Americano, isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The school, they had an office in the Colombo Americano in your city of Armenia, in the Quindío department, and that was where you found it. So for folks, international folks looking for these opportunities, Education USA is a great place to identify what's available for folks in your country. And yeah, let's go on to Judy. How did you decide on Peace Corps? And in general, just for a seasoned professional, you've been in education for 30 years and everything. Like, how did you? There are a lot of opportunities out there. How did you kind of find Peace Corps and decide that was what you wanted to do?
Well, I had heard about Peace Corps when I was much younger in graduate school. There were some returned Peace Corps volunteers at my school. I went to Columbia Teachers College. And so I knew about it. And I had applied actually when I was, or I had inquired, maybe not applied, because I was at the time engaged to my husband who was a wheelchair user. He had muscular dystrophy. And I thought, I knew that you could apply as a couple, but they said no, he couldn't go because he was disabled. And they didn't take people with muscular dystrophy, which I thought was incredibly unfair at the time. And I just put it in the back of my mind and I didn't think about it anymore. And then when I retired, I didn't have a plan for what I was going to do, like you're supposed to, or they recommend that you have a plan for what you're going to do after retirement. And for a few years, I was trying different things. And then the 2016 election came around, and I felt that, I needed to do something for my country. I needed to do something to serve because, it was not what I had hoped things would be. And I wanted to show the world that Americans were good people and that we did good things. And I knew that I could do something to show the world. And I remembered Peace Corps back in the day. And now, I'm older, my husband has passed away, I can go by myself. And I just wanted to do something to serve the country. So that's how I got interested, at least, in Peace Corps. Then I did a lot of research, and I went to workshops, and I did webinars, and I called people. I found out who were the return volunteers who were over 50. I was 57 at the time, and when I started, and I was really interested in what Peace Corps had to offer, but nobody really told me about anything other than the 2-year program, and that's what I was looking into doing. That's what and for those of you who don't know, there's no maximum age for Peace Corps. You can serve as long as you're healthy enough. So I decided to apply. In Jamaica, I just knew a lot of Jamaicans in New York, so I wanted to go to Jamaica.
Thanks for that, Judy. Yeah, and going back to that, Peace Corps is unique, and they have a very sort of detailed medical clearance process, and so you'll get through the front application, and it's usually pretty workable. And but don't forget though that for those of you applying, you do have to go through the medical clearance, and that is pretty detailed. The interesting thing about Peace Corps response, Peace Corps flagship is really for anybody, including young people with maybe limited experience or people who are kind of building their skills. But then Peace Corps response is, I think it started as a sort of a disaster response type program for people with specialized in dealing with natural disasters and helping communities with natural disasters in the 1990s. But it expanded as countries were asking for other more detailed expertise, people who knew about psychology or education, child development, business. Your background was child development, and I wonder if you could maybe tell us more about that in terms of, I can see we've got a little extra time, so I'm skipping some questions, but your background was in child development, and that really played a lot into what you ultimately did in serving in Belize. So could you tell us about that?
Sure. So my degree and my certification is in teaching English as a second language, teaching English to speakers of other languages. So I'm a language person too, like Sara and Doris. And so I did teach for many years, and then I got into professional development and also literacy development of children. So I did that for 10 years as part of in New York City, and and I loved teaching literacy. I loved working with early childhood and watching children learn to read. So I had no idea that position even existed in Peace Corps. I just happened upon somebody told me about it. A friend of mine who works for USAID told me about it. One of my Jamaican friends, actually. And she said, "That sounds like what you do or what you used to do." And I looked at it, and it was exactly my field. It was teacher development in the area of literacy of young children of early childhood. And it was only for 9 months as opposed to 27 months, but 9 months was great. I think the shorter time period for me was even better than the 27 months, and I also think that because as you said, it's for experienced and skilled people who bring an expertise to the country. You don't have as many young people, the people just out of college that you do find in the 2-year program, in the 27-month program. So it's more people in my age group, which made it really suitable for me as well. But I'm sure I would have done fine with the 27-month program too. But I really loved Peace Corps response. I really loved the short time. In fact, I applied again to extend the 9 months into 12 months. And I was going to do an additional 2.5 months so that I could even go into a second year and to a second cohort, which I was accepted for all of those 2 applications. But COVID happened and I couldn't finish. So I did 1 additional month. So that's why it was 10 months for me in Belize.
You were the first person to do that too. You were working with local teachers. I remember we were talking in Belmopan, and folks wondering how I know all this stuff. It's because these folks are all going to be featured in our upcoming away journal. But and you worked with local Belize teachers in expanding their techniques to work with children mostly in 2nd grade age range, and you came up with a great way to kind of expand teacher collaboration through that. And could you kind of take 15 seconds to tell us about that?
Sure, we did all sorts of things. I lived in Belmopan and worked in the villages and within the city of Belmopan. I had 11 teachers. I would visit them, offer them support, offer them activities that had been developed to work with their lowest level readers in their classrooms. Some of them had entire classrooms, 30 kids who couldn't read. And we worked on that with the whole class, teaching the whole class and teaching a specialized group, an intervention group, we called it. And so one of my big successes was having teachers from all of the schools, all 11 teachers, get to go and visit other teachers and observe their teaching techniques and some of the good work and golden methods that they were using. And then we'd sit around and talk about it and examine everything that they saw. And that really was such a big learning experience for teachers. Their teacher training is very, very limited. So they had never done anything like an inter-school exchange or anything like that, an intervisitation.
Thanks, Judy. Yeah, anybody who's looking, to serve abroad, you should be thinking when you're trying to figure out your program, what is sort of your special skill? What is your kind of superpower that you can share with other places? And I think sometimes we can kind of like Judy, you were saying you're kind of surprised at how much opportunity there was to serve in the area of child literacy, and yet, I think we can take some of our own skills and knowledge for granted, but it's good to approach it with an open mind and remember that. I mean, even we've encountered people with knowledge of disability from lived experience actually have something that many other communities can learn from, and that can actually give a competitive edge. So let's go on to Doris. And I want to ask you, I think we talked a little bit about kind of some of the research that you did to prepare, but can you tell us when you got to the Dominican Republic, what surprised you?
Okay, give me a minute while I catch up with the interpreter. Okay, great. That's a good question. So what surprised me most was how people viewed deafness and deaf people. In Spanish, there's a word called that means deaf are humane. Deaf are human. Deaf mute, excuse me, deaf mute. And that's the usage in Spanish. So even when you're speaking, it's already a word that is concerning. So I would constantly be educating people that deafness is just deafness. It's not deaf mute. A lot of people think that deaf people have no education, that they aren't capable of doing things. And so this is really kind of a shocking thing, because at Gallaudet University, we graduate from a 4-year degree program, and here we are, and we're seen as uneducated. Another thing that was surprising was that really deaf people don't have positions of authority in the Dominican Republic. And so there's a very limited number of deaf teachers and not very many high level educated people who are deaf. So it felt a little kind of like people are always, kind of offer or suggesting to the deaf community. Let me make sure. Trying to serve the deaf community, the kind of they're thinking they need to help them rather than that they're capable of themselves, and not empowering people, but trying to be caretakers. And so for me, it's really important to help people in that community develop and be able to take care of themselves, empower themselves.
And I think I think the organization too that you were working with had been doing quite a lot in terms of disability rights in the Dominican Republic too. Was there anything in that work that surprised you?
Yes. So one thing in the Dominican Republic was sign language is not recognized as an official language, which means that meant that the laws that would apply to language access are also not official or not recognized, which means that that's going to be a problem for education for deaf students. And it will impact a lot of other things. So language rights are a big issue all around the world. And that means that it's something that we are hoping will be recognized soon. So the Anan Sordo, they have they're creating a dictionary at the time that they've just launched. so that their language can be codified, and will give people opportunities to learn and share their language, and hope that it will develop into in the process.
That's great. Thanks, Doris. Yeah, people, so definitely, you know, when you go abroad to different countries, sometimes there are somewhat paternalistic cultural attitudes, and sometimes people with disabilities can look like, at least it can look like, non-disabled people perceive us as being passive, but even in places where there's not the level of accessibility that we're used to, people with disabilities are not passive, and there's always, in all countries, there's a constant movement of advancement towards disability rights. You mentioned, I think one of the things that I thought was interesting, and I'm moving on to Sara now, is you know, people without disabilities can often view us as exclusively takers, and it's not really every day or every person who thinks of, you know, somebody preparing meals for low-income families, or somebody working with small children in sort of in a daycare setting. It's not every day we think about that person as being blind or using a wheelchair. And I think you were telling me an interesting story when you were volunteering in the Tenderloin about how you kind of had to negotiate your way into a position of being a contributor. And I wonder if you could tell me about what were some of the strategies that you used as a blind person to insert yourself into some of these opportunities so that you didn't just get left on the sidelines.
Yep. So I actually feel I really want to talk about what Doris was saying, because I had the same process, but backwards. I lived in a culture that viewed blind and deaf as, you know, we couldn't do things. And when I started volunteering, I feel those adaptations and those kind of educational aspects that I needed to do with people, trying to teach them we as people with a disability can do the same, was more in my country than when I traveled abroad. And one of my first, like, I know you didn't ask me about it, but what surprised me the most was actually seeing the differences that people, for example, in the US, was not trying to help all the time. And at the beginning, I was like, they don't want to help. And then I actually understood that they respected my, you know, my abilities and my own independence, and they were going to help me if I asked them to help. Not like here that you're going to cross the street and there's like 10 people around you, hey, do you want to help? That's great, but I feel there's like an infantilization culture here. And about sorry, I'm just talking about a lot of things at the same time. About the adaptations I made. Here in Colombia, I started trying to teach people that we could do things. For example, I volunteered in the church making cookies, and they were so afraid I could cod, you know, the dough.
This was
and
after you
stuff like
came home
that.
from the United States.
Yes, that's because I feel the adaptations in the US were not as hard. Like, people understood I could do things, and I actually was a bit scared because they were asking me, can you do this? And I was like, I don't know. But here people just assume you cannot do it. So I feel it's more like my experience was like Doris, but backwards. And I really feel we need to change those, you know, like the stigma we have towards people with disabilities, especially in Latin America, or it's, yeah, it's a hard process, but people like Doris is helping a lot.
Thanks. Yeah, and I mean, it seemed like kind of one of the things you learned is how to kind of take charge and sort of tell people what you need when you were in the United States,
Right.
like when you were preparing meals for low-income children, and kind of sorting out the work that you thought you could do most effectively? I mean, but now that you're kind of going back, now that you're back in Colombia, and you sounds like you've been doing a lot of sort of follow-up volunteer stuff. Have you found that kind of going out there and volunteering locally, you've been able to make headway with folks in your country? Do you feel like spaces are opening up at least kind of more for you as people kind of see that you're capable?
Well, I think attitude helps a lot. Like in the US, I learned a
Whose
lot.
attitude?
Attitude, like my attitude, because for example, like my way of doing things or my perspective helped, because in the US I didn't know how to ask for help, and I was so young. I feel I learned how to, for example, let people know what accommodations I needed if I did, or let them know what things could I do, what things I needed help with. So when I got here with that experience, with that learning that it's okay to ask for help, that it's okay to say you don't need help politely, um, that helped me a lot in my volunteering experience currently. So I'm more open to people, more open to tell them what I can or cannot do, and teach them. So they see like I'm a easygoing person, so they get it. It's opening. I feel at least for the places I work with, they are opening a lot their minds to receive volunteers with disabilities because of that.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I found one of the things I've learned over time is if you ask people, well, what can I do, or what programs are there for me? They usually don't know. They're not going to have a whole lot of answer for you. So it's like, it's great when you do these kinds of programs. That I think I hear from a lot of disabled people that come back from volunteering or interning abroad. You learn how to take charge, and you learn how to walk into a situation and say, I have a disability. This is what it means for this situation, and this is what you need to do if there is anything they need to do. So it sounds like you were able to take some great skills from the United States and now opening up opportunities in Colombia. I'm going to go back to Judy. Now, I just want to, before I ask, we're in the last 7 minutes of the session, and I have not heard any chats come in, questions from the audience, although my colleagues have been posting great resources about Peace Corps and so forth throughout the session. But if anybody would like to ask any questions to our panelists, I would like to open up the floor for those. And going on to Judy now, for your Peace Corps, I'm going to ask you a couple questions and you can answer whichever one seems most relevant. Were there any things that you were planning for that ended up being overblown, or things that ended up not being as big of a deal as you thought they might be? Or on the other side of that, were there any aspects that you wish you had considered before going abroad?
Justin, if you wouldn't mind, could I go back to the question about what you were surprised about?
Sure.
Because in Belize, we had an accessibility day for children. I was really surprised when I got to Belize to see how people with disabilities were really put on the back burner, as Sara said, and nobody expected them to be able to do much. Children particularly, didn't even go to school a lot of times if they were disabled or had a disability. Children would be on the streets and begging, and their parents would be behind them and telling them, go here, go do this, ask for money here, ask for money there. And you rarely saw a child with a disability in school, or if they even had a learning disability, there were not even services for that. It was very limited. I mean, there were some services for children who had hearing loss, or very few, or children who had visual impairments or anything like that. There was very, very little for kids like that. But when we had the accessibility parade and the kids were carrying banners like "the future is accessible," and they asked me to speak to it, because my big thing was, you have to take responsibility for you, and you have to bring awareness to the area of disability, to society. And it was a really lovely little parade in Belmopan that we had, with the kids marching around with these signs. And it was organized by the Office of Special Ed Services in my office. But it was one person. It wasn't really an office. It was very, very small. So that's something that really did surprise me, how people with disabilities were treated, really. I mean, there were no curb cuts. There were no, automatic doors. There were no sign language interpreters. So I just wanted to make that point. And the thing I had already spoken about, how I did not have any awareness that Peace Corps had other areas, excuse me, like Peace Corps response, that I would be able to do. I wish that I had known that at the beginning, that it would, that would have saved me a lot of time and heartache, because it was really disappointing not to be accepted the first time. And Peace Corps response was perfect for me. So that was the thing that I wish I had known ahead of time.
Thanks, Judy. I'm going to just open this up. I haven't heard any questions in the chat yet. We are in the last 3 minutes, but just if you have anybody, Judy, Sara, or Doris, do you have any suggestions, or what would you tell somebody with a disability kind of wanting to have an experience abroad? Any tips or final thoughts? I just kind of want to open this up to whoever wants to take that question.
Yes, I would love to. This is Doris. My advice is do it. So if you're a little bit on the fence, I think you should do it. I received a Gilman, and before I applied, I was kind of wondering if I was going to be able to do it, and I doubted myself quite a bit. And so my advice is, I mean, obviously I received it. So obviously it's important to think about these things, but even if you fail, do it again, keep doing it, and don't give up.
And I want to say too that Gilman is a great way for undergraduates to fund international exchange. And like Doris created her own program and they funded her. So it doesn't even have to necessarily be specific programs that are pre-existing. You can create your own.
And I'd like to say, add to what Doris said. I was trying to give her a applause and thumbs up, because I loved what she said. My word is perseverance, which adds on to what Doris said. Keep trying. You may get a no, you may get a door slammed in your face, you may have roadblocks that you have to jump over and hoops that you have to jump over. If they say no, ask what other way you could do it. If they make you go to a specialist, just go to the specialist. Don't ask why, just do it. Like Doris said, just do it. You get far more out of it than what you would expect. And what's the worst they can say? No. So what? If they say no, you're just back at beginning again, and just go ahead and do it. Persevere.
Thanks, Judy. So it is now 2:30 Eastern, and we're at the end of this session. So everybody, this has been great. One of these panelists, all three of them have really unique and diverse experiences, but the one thing that they all have in common is that each and every one of them is going to be featured in the upcoming edition of our A World Awaits You Away journal. It should be coming out in the next soon. And you should subscribe to our Access to Exchange newsletter in order to be the first to find out when the Away journal goes public. My colleague Ashley is also working on a diversity Away journal, which I think we've already plugged earlier in the conference. So keep an eye out for both of those. It's going to be an Away bonanza in the next year or so. And in addition to that, I want to say that my colleague Joey Lenny shared a previous experiential Away journal that we put out, must have been 5 years ago. So I encourage you all to go take a look at that as well. There's a lot of great experiences, great stories and tips in that magazine. We also have other resources on our website about supporting volunteers with disabilities. And as part of this upcoming Experiential Away release, I'm going to be working on some tips that will hopefully kind of provide some substantive advice to international educators, in air quotes, experiential educators on supporting people with disabilities and other programs apart from volunteer. So keep an eye out for that, and we look forward to seeing you all in the next hour or so for the last session. Monica, do you want to give a brief word about that, or should we say goodbye here?
Yeah, this is Monica. It's actually going to start pretty soon at 2 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Eastern time, just for less than 1 hour. We're going to just have some closing remarks and a musical performance, and that's going to be a wrap. So I hope you can enjoy and join us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.